Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into a YouTube video transcript you shared. It's from a psychology student digging into relationship red flags, specifically looking at men early in dating. But the source does say a lot applies more broadly.
That's right. And our mission here is really to unpack this specific viewpoint. We're looking at the subtle signs the source identifies. What do they think these behaviors mean? Going beyond the super obvious stuff, you know?
Exactly. Think of it as a shortcut to understanding this one detailed take on relationship dynamics, those little things that might matter a lot later. Okay, let's get into it. So first up, something kind of small, but the source makes it big. Does he remember things you say? Like the important things.
Yeah, and the reasoning is pretty direct. If he's not remembering key details, especially early on when, let's be honest, people are usually trying to impress, the source suggests it signals a lack of real care or interest.
Right. What about the, oh, he's just busy excuse?
The source basically dismisses that. Their take is, if someone is genuinely into you, especially at the start, they make the effort, they find the mental space. If not, maybe they just don't prioritize caring deeply like that. It's fundamental in their view.
Okay, so memory equals care. Interesting. Then, connected to that, how does he react when you have a problem?
Does he offer a solution, try to help, or just kind of leave you hanging?
Leave you to suffer alone, I think was the phrase.
It's the one. The source sees this as a test. Does the person actually add value, or are they just there? They even mentioned Steve Harvey on this, the all talk, no action idea.
And the advice, if they don't offer solutions.
Pretty clear. You gotta bounce. That's the quote. You need someone who steps up, not just watches.
Gotta bounce. Got it. Okay, let's shift slightly. Finances. The source flags being way too interested in your earnings.
Especially if you make more money. Exactly. And it's less about them being a gold digger, necessarily, and more about what it might signify, like insecurity. Or even a desire to compete with you, which the source contrasts with what they call masculine energy, which they say wouldn't care about your income.
So seeing you as competition, that's the red flag there, wanting someone who lifts you up instead.
Precisely. It's about support versus rivalry, according to this perspective.
Okay, sticking with interaction.
Yeah.
What about basic conversation? Like, is he asking you questions back?
Oh, yeah, this is a big one for the source. If the questions aren't flowing both ways, they suggest a few possibilities. Maybe he's just not that into you. Or, okay, maybe he's genuinely a bad conversationalist. Could be.
Or maybe just not curious about people.
Right. Lacks curiosity, doesn't really care to dig deeper into who you are. Or the source suggests maybe the interest is purely physical, not about your mind, your history, your goals.
Which really connects back to that first point about remembering things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's all about showing genuine interest in you.
Absolutely. And building on that, the source talks about validating your interests, the things you care about.
How crucial is that in their view?
Very, especially early on. They even say, look, maybe they have to fake it a little bit at first if your interests aren't aligned, but showing that respect, that validation for what matters to you, that's seen as a key way of showing they care.
Okay, now a really critical area. Boundaries. What happens if they get pushed? Even small ones.
This is presented as a major test. The source gives examples like, okay, the extreme is pressuring for sex after a no, but they emphasize the subtle stuff too. Like you say, no alcohol tonight, and they push back, oh, come on, just have one drink.
That kind of thing.
Exactly. And the source is really strong on this based on experience, apparently. If they don't respect a small boundary then you best believe it's going to happen in other areas as well. It's seen as a predictor of future respect. Or lack thereof.
Wow, okay, that's a heavy prediction. Let's talk relationship history. The source mentions talking about exes.
Yeah, the immediate question the source poses is why? Why are they bringing up an ex? Are they maybe not quite over them? The guideline offered is basically don't bring up an ex unless it's super relevant, and even then, tread carefully. You don't want the new person thinking you're still hung up.
Makes sense. And related.
Yeah.
Just having a lot of exes, that's also a flag.
Yes. The source is pretty skeptical here. They question why someone can't seem to maintain a relationship long term. They push back on they just date a lot idea, stressing these are described as whole-ass relationships.
Right, not just casual dating.
Exactly. The source doubts someone truly connects deeply with, 15-plus people in that way, suggests something not quite right there.
Okay. Simple one next, but telling, according to the source. Words versus actions. He says things, but they just don't happen.
And the source has this very specific rule, like a 3-strike rule.
Oh, really?
Yeah. After the third time something he says he'll do falls through, the source's verdict is, You best believe he's a clown.
A clown. Okay, they're not holding back.
Not at all.
What about just general negativity, like talking shit about exes or just people in general?
Clear warning from the source on this. If they badmouth others to you, chances are high they'll eventually badmouth you to others. Plus, it just suggests a kind of negative outlook on people, which the source finds pretty undesirable.
And the classic variation, all my exes are crazy.
Oh, yeah. The source flips that right back. Their question is, are you sure you're not the problem? They concede, okay, maybe one crazy ex exists somewhere. But they strongly suggest it's often the guy's behavior making the partner feel or act that way.
They mention knowing high-value women who are driven crazy by their partner.
Exactly. It challenges that common narrative.
Definitely. Okay, general maturity flags, playing games.
The source puts an age limit on this one. High school. Maybe understandable, they suggest, but once you hit 20, if the games are still happening, their advice is blunt. Go on, get out of there.
Simple enough. What about just consideration, being thoughtful?
This is framed as really important. The source uses the example of noticing if you're cold, goosebumps, without you having to spell it out. They point out how really, really tiring it is to constantly have to say, I'm cold, I'm hungry, I'm tired.
Yeah, it's nice when someone just notices, cares.
Exactly, that basic level of considerate observation.
And then, super basic, bad hygiene.
The sources take huge freaking red flag, need I say less, end of story.
Can't argue there. Family stuff.
Oh.
Being a mama's boy
Yeah.
or having a really bad relationship with his mom.
The source flags both extremes. Their concern is that both situations, usually not always, but often might correlate with misogyny, especially if there's trauma or unhealthy dynamics there that haven't been worked through.
Interesting connection. What about friends? Or rather, a lack of close friends.
Right. And the source notes this applies broadly, men, women, friendships in general. The question they pose is, why no close friends? Does it maybe indicate an inability to have good relationships with people overall? It's a question worth asking, they suggest.
Good point. Okay, initiative, a guy who just doesn't make plans.
The worry expressed by the source is that you'll end up doing all the work, initiating everything throughout the relationship. They contrast the person who shows up with an itinerary showing proactive effort versus the one who just comes along for the ride. Always agreeable, maybe, but never taking the lead.
You don't want to be dragging someone along forever.
Pretty much.
And this one feels crucial. How they treat service staff. Being rude to a waiter or anyone seen as below them.
Absolute deal breaker for the source. Their exact words, you're done, just complete non-starter. They insist on politeness to everyone, and they specifically link rudeness to staff, especially from someone wealthy, to a potential misogynistic undertone.
Wow, that's a strong link they make. Misogyny.
Yeah, the idea being it shows how they might treat people they don't feel they need to impress or respect.
Okay. Another communication flag. Constant interrupting, not letting you finish speaking.
The prediction from the source. That's probably how it's always going to be. It suggests, in their view, a lack of respect for you, your opinions. Maybe they just want to talk about themselves.
What about lifestyle? Partying hard, getting drunk every weekend.
The source gives this a bit of leeway for college kid age, very, very early 20s. But their overall feeling is eventually people need to kind of get out of the party stage if they want to build something more serious.
Makes sense. Okay, a big one they warn about, love bombing. That intense early phase.
Described clearly by the source as a manipulation tactic. They observe that people who do this often get attached so quickly that it fizzles out just as fast, and it can turn incredibly toxic.
Why do they think people do it?
The source theorizes these individuals perhaps can't be alone. They're looking for something outside of themselves. Examples given are classic, saying, I love you super fast, showering you with gifts and constant affection, wanting to be together 24/7.
It can feel amazing at first, though, right?
Exactly. The source warns it can feel like pure, true love, but it might just be those brain chemicals, oxytocin and the dopamine, not real, stable connection.
That's a tricky distinction. Okay, finally. Maybe the biggest trap, according to the source. Believing someone will change, hoping the change will happen.
Yeah, the source is incredibly firm here, drawing from personal experience, it seems. I've fallen for it, we've all fallen for it, they say. Their conclusion is stark. The change doesn't happen, period.
And why not? What's the dynamic if you stay?
They believe the person will not respect you if you stay, because subconsciously they know they got away with the bad behavior initially. They feel they have power over you because you stayed despite it.
Oof. Okay, so pulling this all together, the source really hammers home looking at these subtle cues right from the beginning.
Absolutely. And importantly, while the video focused on one dynamic, the source repeats that these points about care, communication, respect, maturity, they often apply across genders and relationship types, friendships too.
Good reminder. It's not just about romantic partners or just men. The underlying message seems to be pay attention early because, as the source puts it, been there, done that. It can save you bigger problems later.
Which leads directly to their final, really powerful piece of advice, drawing all these observations together. If someone isn't showing you what you're looking for right from the start, don't give them that chance. Just don't.
It feels really tough, almost counterintuitive sometimes. We're often told to see potential, right? Why is the source so absolute about cutting it off early?
Their explanation centers on attachment, how easy it is to get attached, even to someone who isn't right for you. They specifically mention how, in their view, girls can get attached through closeness, good conversation, comfortability, things that feel good.
But might mask the underlying red flags or missing qualities.
Exactly. You get attached through those positive interactions, even if the fundamental issues identified by the source are present. And their ultimate warning is about that feeling, ending up with someone you knew wasn't right. The clown. In their words, but you hoped would change. That feeling, they say, is the worst. Makes you feel so stupid. So the advice is, only give the chance if the core qualities you need are actually there.
Protect yourself by being selective from day one. That's a strong takeaway. It leaves us with a final thought to mull over, drawing from the source. If, as they strongly believe, the change doesn't happen and you should invest in someone who doesn't meet your needs from the start, how much weight should we give potential versus the reality of someone's behavior right now? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive today.